Our very own reporter, Jordan Sheridan, was lucky enough, if you call it lucky, to get a place on Trump's plane. And he was recently at the Spooky Nook Sports Complex in Pennsylvania in order to do coverage of a gigantic rally there. Now, during that rally, he spoke to a number of Trump supporters, and here's what happened. Take a look at the first video.
We are on the Trump plane. We just left New York City about 10 minutes ago, and now we're headed to Mannheim, Pennsylvania.
No, sir. I just want to make sure you know where we're going, right?
They're more focused on, seems to be their inner city vote than they are about the rest of the public and the rest of the Americans that are out here working every day.
If we wanted to make it truly fair, we wouldn't, for capital gains tax, we wouldn't have it at all, for the poor and for the rich. Because
I don't think the poor are really investing in the stock market.
We're just talking about who can actually make money and make a living off of it.
Nobody's stopping her from paying more taxes if she wants to do that. You know, the average American and Donald Trump, we do our best not to pay our share.
He's saying things that we all feel. We're tired of politically correct, you know. He's speaking his mind. You know, he's calling Miss America fat, ugly, whatever he said about it.
The comments came out where he called her Miss Piggy and Miss Housekeeping, and then he tweeted at 3 in the morning saying sex tapes, so they're crushing him on that. Do you think...
Hey, that's great. He's up thinking about things.
Okay, I mean, look, there's so many wonderful parts to that. First, the short dude, no offense, right, he's a living embodiment of what Jimmy Dore makes fun of. You know how Jimmy's always talking about his brother who thinks he's going to get hit with the estate tax even though he works at Walmart or wherever?
Yeah.
Right?
There's no estate for them to tax after you're gone, sorry.
So this guy's like, oh, well, you know, the capital gains tax affects the rich and the poor. Jordan with a brilliant question. Which poor are paying capital gains tax? Like, it's not a thing that happens. It's by definition. You have to have capital to invest to pay the capital gains tax. So no, it only helps the rich. Okay, then my favorite was the guy in the middle who's like, he's only saying the things we're all thinking, you know, about the chicks who are fat and ugly.
No, it's unbelievable. Look, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you watch Jordan's video in its entirety at youtube.com/tytpolitics. There are several shots of the entire, like the majority of the audience, wide shots of the audience, completely white. And so when that one guy that you just mentioned is saying what he's saying about Trump is saying what we're all thinking, he's specifically talking about his demographic. And that's not to say all white people agree with him, obviously not, right? But the Trump supporters who support him definitely agree with what he has to say about women, what he has to say about Muslims, what he has to say about black people, what he has to say about Mexicans. I mean, I don't know, is there any demographic other than white people that he hasn't insulted?
Yeah, and so look, I call that the angry white male. Obviously there's women there, and obviously it's not about all white males, super obvious, right? But it is that old school, angry, racist, white school of thought, which is we own everything, we control everything. And so now that that's being taken away from them and they don't get to control everything, they're so mad. And again, another great emblematic moment there in that quick little video was the other guy who said, well, look, on the taxes, we don't want to pay our fair share. Exactly. Okay. So now all this time they're talking about the minorities and how they want handouts and freebies. You go to any of those videos that Jordan and Eric have shot on youtube.com/tytpolitics. All the crowds look the exact same. North Carolina, Pennsylvania, it doesn't matter. They all look the same, and they're all saying the same things. Oh, the blacks want the freebies and the handouts. Now, of course, I'm not going to pay my fair share of taxes, and Donald Trump's brilliant for not paying his fair share.
Isn't that one of the biggest criticisms of undocumented immigrants, that they don't pay their taxes?
Especially their fair share of taxes.
They don't pay their
fair share. And here they're like, yeah, we got out of it, and we unloaded our taxes onto other people.
Yeah.
You're the ones who want the freebies.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Now, in the second part of Jordan's video, he decided to pretend as though he's a Trump supporter, okay? And the answers that he got from some of the supporters there were priceless. Take a look.
I feel like I'm coming down with something that is zapping the ideology out of me and twisting me into a whole different person. What do you think the biggest lie is that Hillary Clinton has told that the media is covering up?
It has to do with the emails. You know, she's got a lot to hide in there.
You think she's got some emails with Obama that she deleted?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Obama's going to be involved with this stuff because he knew about it.
hiding things like paying ISIS, giving ISIS enough money to get more resources and more.
Or giving money to ISIS directly.
Yes.
This whole he's against women thing is a bunch of crap. I mean, basically, he makes one or two comments off the cuff like we all do. We're Americans. We all talk like that. It's typical everyday comments.
What do you think she's hiding?
A bunch of shit.
That's what she's hiding, dementia. She's unfit. I don't want her to collapse in the Oval Office, do you?
You think the media kind of is covering up her health issues?
They've been doing it for years. We have a very liberal media in this country.
You a doctor? Well, how do you know she's got dementia?
I've been watching a lot of Fox News.
Her husband cheated on her, and if she can turn the other cheek for somebody cheating on her and lying to her about that, what else can she turn her cheek on? She's definitely going to turn herself on America.
No, she's going to turn herself on America.
How are people criticizing her? How are people criticizing her because her husband cheated on her? Well, how? And by the way, I mean, we're talking about conservatives, right? We're talking about the most conservative people in America that support Donald Trump, the ones that say, turn the other cheek, be subservient to your husband, be submissive to your husband, always support your husband. You came from the rib of your husband is God, always obey your husband. And then when a liberal has the audacity to not break her relationship up because he cheated on her, which, by the way, that's her decision, that's their relationship dynamic, it's none of our business. Oh, she's a terrible person. How can we trust her if she's going to stay with her husband? I thought she came from his rib, right? I thought she was supposed to obey.
Yeah, and what happened to the sanctity of marriage? So meanwhile, of course, Trump has been married 3 different times. His marriages are really sacrosanct. And then Rudy Giuliani, one of his main attack dogs on this, been married multiple times. Like the way he humiliated his ex-wife while they were still married, and he was cheating on her in public while he was mayor of New York. It was disgraceful. Yep. And then when challenged on it, Giuliani said, well, I mean, everybody has affairs.
Not only does everyone have affairs, I'm better because I confessed. I'm Catholic. I confessed to my priest. So it's okay for me to do it, but it's not okay for anyone else to do it. These people are so hypocritical on so many different levels, right?
But I love what Jordan did there. I think you should do that more often, which is pretend to be a conservative in the media, and then they'll open up more. They won't be as guarded. They'll be like, oh, yeah. Oh, she's got dementia. Everybody knows that.
No. Okay, let's talk about that guy for a second, right? Do you not see yourself in the mirror? And I'm not talking about your physical appearance. I'm talking about the presentation of what you're saying. Oh, no, she's unfit. She's unfit to be president. You're unfit to speak. You're unfit to be on camera or to be interviewed. Like, you're unfit to function in life. And you have the audacity to talk about how she's unfit because she has dementia. Look, and that's another thing. There is so much misinformation fed to these people, and they buy it. They take it at face value. Hillary Clinton is funding ISIS? Based on what? Directly funding ISIS. That's what that woman said. I don't know, man. This country's helpless.
Okay, so...
Hopeless.
So, first of all, on Jordan's questions, I know someone we're leading. Like, he'd say, what about Obama? And he'd be like, oh, yeah, Obama's in the emails. Obama, yeah, of course, Obama's in the emails. So, but it also goes to show you how easy it is for the conservative media to manipulate conservative voters. All you can do is plant a tiny little thought in their heads. Like, you think it was Obama? Oh, yeah, it was Obama. Obama's in the emails. That's why they deleted the emails. Obviously. How simple was that? But half the questions we're not leading. It's the woman who brought up ISIS.
I know.
She's like, oh, yeah, no, it's obviously ISIS is in the emails. She's funding ISIS, and that's what happened. Jordan added, directly funding, and she's like, oh, obviously. Yeah, of course, directly funding, right? And so, and off they go. And then in terms of where that guy who's unfit came up with his ideas, that was maybe the best part. Where'd you get that she has dementia? I watch a lot of Fox News.
Oh, okay, then it must be true. It must be true.
Which connects all this together. By the way, on the idea of her having dementia, if she has dementia, how come she just kicked your candidate's ass in the last debate? Does that mean he's got even worse dementia? That's according to the polling. That's not liberals saying it. That's not the media saying it. Scientific national polling showed that the American people thought she killed him in the last debate. Who's got dementia now?
No, Cenk, but Trump says that he won in every single online poll.
Yeah, because he doesn't understand science.
It's sad. Look, it's funny.
Sad.
Watching those videos and watching those responses, it's easy to sit back and laugh and have fun and make fun of them, but they represent a huge, huge chunk of this country. And that's what worries me, okay? The fact that they are easily manipulated, the fact that they reject evidence contrary to what they already believe, the fact that a news organization like Fox is considered credible and legitimate by people like this. And so they're voting against their best interests. More than anything, they're voting against their best interests. They're voting for a candidate that does not care about them. They're voting for a candidate that has taken advantage of the system of government we've had in place that basically keeps them down, that prevents them from moving up an economic ladder.
Yeah, that's why I'm split on it, man. On the one hand, I can't help but beat them up because they say such outrageous, ridiculous things. On the other hand, they're not the problem. Like they are.
They're definitely part of the problem.
Like they're angry about a rigged system. A lot of that is true. But unfortunately, it's so easy to misdirect their anger. So Trump has bottled it up and said you should hate the others, you should hate people who are under you. And that is a human phenomenon. I mean, it was part of the reason why slavery lasted so long in this country. Because instead of tackling your real problems, you feel better, and this is proven fact based on all the studies, because we feel our happiness is directly related not to our material well-being, but how we compare ourselves to other people, okay? To your community, to your neighbors, etc., right? So, yeah, I'm in a terrible situation, but at least the slaves are worse off, right? That's part of what kept slavery going for so long. Yeah, I'm in a terrible situation, and I got robbed by guys I can't see, but at least the Mexicans are worse off. At least I can do something to the Muslims and put them below me, right? Look, it's that old saying that the Russians have. God comes down and says to a Russian, okay, I'm going to give you anything you want, but whatever I give you, I'm going to give twice as much to your neighbor. And the Russian thinks and goes, okay, blind me in one eye. Okay, so now that's an old parable, and maybe, I don't know if it's anti-Russian, whatever, but you get the point because it applies all across the world.
Yeah.
And so what these Trump voters are doing is saying, the rest of the country, blind them in one eye. At the Young Turks, we believe in change. We believe we can change the media, make it more independent. Come do it with us. tytnetwork.com/join.